Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Neurodiverging podcast. I'm Danielle Sullivan, and today we're talking about what it actually means to be high functioning. I'm excited for this one. Before we get into that, I need to let you know that I have a book coming out. It is called Embracing Your ADHD Brain, an actually helpful guide for teens. It is for teens and young adults who are ADHDers and learning how to live in a way that supports the way that our brains work in the way that most of us want to live our lives, as opposed to all the things we're taught about how we should live our lives. If this is something that you would like or that you know someone who might benefit from, you can learn more about it at neurodiverging.com/embracing, or you can order it wherever you get your books. Amazon, Bookshop, Barnes& and Noble, IndieBound, all those places have it. So now let's talk a little bit more about, let's talk about this high functioning thing. I have done a lot of work in the past, and I've recorded some shorts in the past that have done pretty well, just about how the term high functioning, whether it's applied to autistic folks, to people with depression, to any kinds of neurodivergent people, I don't personally find the term high functioning very helpful. That's because what it does is it tells you what the person looks like from the outside, right? If somebody is getting up in the morning, getting dressed, eating, drinking, going to work, coming home, sleeping, they might look like they're doing okay, right? And they might be therefore high functioning. But internally, that person might be having significant challenges that are just not visible, right? So high functioning, calling someone high functioning goes along with this idea of the invisible disability, right? That often people are having challenges that may not be obvious from the outside, but are still real significant challenges in their lives and deserve to be supported and respected. I have a little story about this. I have a past podcast episode that I'll link below about a time that I traveled. I had been living in Colorado for many years, had gone back out east for one of my sister's weddings, and felt very disoriented by the whole experience in a way I wasn't expecting. I was fine, I was stable, but I also found that I didn't know suddenly what I should be doing with my time. My routines had been disrupted, my sleep had been disrupted, my ways of stimming and self-regulating had been disrupted. And then when I got home, it took me several weeks to get back into my systems and routines and feel like a normal person again. I think I described it at the time as this experience of, if you take me out of my routine and my supportive environment that I've built over many, many years, I fall over. I just fall over. In this way, and what I think is important about this, what's important to know is that our capacity, our ability to regulate ourselves, to do our activities of daily living, to eat, to drink, to sleep, to hang out with friends, to enjoy ourselves, to play, to knit, all of these things are, we always think of them as, you have the capacity to do it as part of our personality almost, or our abilities, right? That it's a stable thing. If I have the ability to do it right now, I will always have the ability to do it, right? In reality, there's a difference between what your capacity is when you are supported by your environment and the people around you versus your capacity taken out of that context, right? And I saw this really clearly when I went to my sister's wedding. More recently, I had the experience of moving. We moved last year in August. We're almost a year out from 20 minutes away, 20 minutes down the road, but new house, new housemates, new room, setting up the room, just new everything. All of my chores had to be done differently. I was going to different rooms, doing them in a different order. There were literal different dishes that had to be washed in different ways, right? The laundry machines are now less visible to me. I tend to forget they exist. Meal planning had to be adjusted for the number of people in our house and their preferences. How my kids were schooling had to be adjusted. Budgeting had to be adjusted. All of the systems that make up our family life and my personal life had to be completely overhauled from scratch. This is a really good and common example of how there's a difference between my internal capacity and my supported capacity, right? With supported capacity, I can do all the things, right? I have the ability to ask for help, to shift things around. I rely on context cues in my environment to remind me to do the dishes or the laundry or feed my kids or whatever it is. When we moved to the new house, suddenly I was sleeping way too much because it's too dark in my room and I had no structure for waking myself up in the morning. I was forgetting to eat and feed other people because my cues for reminding myself to do that were different and not set up yet. I had to make completely new visual schedules for literally everything because I was not getting cued by my environment. Also, the people around me, their patterns had changed. People were going to their jobs at different times, going to school at different times. And any of my things, like any of the things I had to do that relied on other people, shifted as well because they had shifted, right? So literally everything had to be rebuilt from the ground up. And it wasn't because my internal capacity had really changed. I was doing well basically the whole time in terms of my mood and energy. The only thing that had changed was the environment and the people around me. I bring this up because I think I have a lot of problems with the term high functioning as a concept, but I think that this is part of the issue is that people see supported capacity. They see what you can do in a context in which you have all your stuff built in. But when you take someone out of that supported context and you're just relying on their internal capacity, that might not actually be that high. My internal capacity without structure is not actually very high. I fall apart very quickly. I see this also a lot in clients who come in who have just moved, who have just changed, maybe they've left a partner or have just moved in with a partner. Maybe they've just had a baby or adopted. Maybe they just got a cat, right? Any kind of big shift in life can cause this. Even if you haven't changed housing, but your roommate has moved out and you were relying on them for context cues, right? Or one of your pets passed away and you're relying on them to get you up in the morning. These things can make a big difference. I also see it a ton when parents come in for parent coaching. And this is one of the things that inspired me to make this episode. I often see in parents this idea that, okay, their kid moved out of the house, their young adult really, moved out of the house or is starting a new job or is taking more independence, and they are struggling to sleep, to keep the house tidy. Basic hygiene, things like showering, things like washing your face, taking your meds, right? Eating on time, taking care of, usually people are actually pretty good at taking care of their pets and kids, but it's like they fall over, right? And what is usually happening in those cases, I'll just say straight out, what is usually happening, in my opinion, in these cases is that the parent was looking at the child's supported capacity, right? The parent, excuse me, was looking at what can my child do in the household now? Maybe they're doing their chores great. Maybe they're cooking dinner for themselves and they're showering regularly and all of these things. And then your child moves out of the home or starts something new, starts college, starts a job, whatever, right? Something changes that alters their structures, their environment and their structures around them. And suddenly your child is not operating from a place of supported capacity. Your child is operating from just their internal capacity. And their internal capacity is not that strong because humans are social and environmental. Um, we frame who we are and what we want based on our environment. We're cued by our environment is maybe the best way to say it, but we're cued by other people, we're cued by the animals and pets around us, and we're cued by the space, the literal space. So when we shift any of those things, the people around us or our space, and we're relying on our internal capacity, it just cannot match up to what the supported capacity was. So many times parents are coming in and saying, my kid used to be able to do XYZ and now they've moved and they can't. I think it's a regression. I think they must be depressed. I think. And sometimes it is. I just want to be clear. Sometimes it is a depression or a regression, or there's some kind of medical or mental health challenge that needs immediate attention. But more often, it's that the kiddo's executive function skills and just like planning skills and skills cannot hold up under the lack of support from the environment and the people. That they like when I had to move and suddenly I couldn't like wake up in the morning and remember to feed myself and all these things. It's not because I was having a mental health crisis. It's literally just because my context had changed. And so high functioning only exists when there is support, when there is support. And that support might be invisible for people on the outside, right? Because I don't know that my alarms and my visual schedules and my people pinging me to do things for them or pinging me to remember the things I'm supposed to do, they don't show up to the outside, right? And similarly, as a parent or as a friend, or if you're a solo adult listening to this and you've had this experience, you start to like not remember that the way that you set up your bedroom coaches you to do things a certain way, or the way that you set up how you do your dishes coaches you to do it a certain way. And when that shifts, when the room is different, when there's a a back pile of dishes or something, and your process has to change, and we're shifting into whatever our internal capacity is, and there's no more supported environmental capacity, that's a big jump for your brain. And most folks, whether they're neurodivergent or not, will struggle. And neurodivergent people will struggle for longer because our structures are built on structures are built on structures. And so it can be even bigger. And so when you are looking at how can I help myself or my child or whomever, first of all, like, yes, building internal capacity is a thing we can do, right? Many people can learn new skills regardless of age. And sometimes we just need to learn new skills. And those new skills might just be learning how to make a list or a visual schedule, or just noticing that things are falling over so that you can get help, right? But the other thing we have to do is offer our put in our brains and pay attention to this very clear difference between what somebody can do actually solo and independent, which is small, versus what people can do with the support of the environment and people around them, which is much bigger, okay? And you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples, right? So if somebody moves out of the home and starts to fall over, make sure you're not looking at their current capacity and comparing it to what their supported capacity was in the home. Until they are re-supported, until those structures have been rebuilt, they will not be apples to apples, right? They will need more support. They will need more active intervention to get to where they need to go. So now a year later in my new home, is everything perfect? No, because it's life. But am I getting up in the morning? Mostly. Yes. Yes. Am I, getting the dishes done and feeding my children and giving my old cat his meds and doing all the things? Yeah. Is work going? Yes, it is. Right. And so now that these structures have been rebuilt, I am back to looking high functioning, quote unquote, right? Because these structures are invisible to people who are not in the home with me, and even to people who are in the home with me in many cases, right? They're not always obvious. They're not always blinking, flashing, obvious supports, but they are still supportive. And they make it hard to tell from the outside whether somebody is doing well or not, because high functioning can also mean you're getting up and going to work, but you aren't showering, you aren't taking your meds, you aren't having any fun in your life, right? So I truly feel a useless label. And it doesn't do the distinguishing work that we really need to do between different types of capacity. Okay. So a question to take us out on, if you would like to do some of this thinking work for yourself, is which parts of your current daily functioning depend on supports that have become invisible to you? What structures are you depending on that you can't see anymore, right? And what structures, if you're a parent, are your kiddos depending on? Or if you're partnered, what is your partner depending on that you can't even see anymore, right? Thinking through this can really help you start to discern when there's a space that we need to develop more skills in and create more internal capacity, and when there's a space that we just need more external structures, more calendaring, more visual supports, more people poking us, whatever it is. Okay. Question again, which parts of your daily functioning depend on supports that have become invisible to you? If you would like to answer this question down below, you can leave a comment, let me know. You can also call in at the number below and leave a voicemail, and they can be used in future podcast episodes. It's always really cool to see what other people's experiences are and what are our differences and what are our similarities. Again, I'll just pitch that Embracing Your ADHD Brain is available at neurodiverging.com/embracing or at any bookstore. And I appreciate anybody posting about it, reviewing it, sharing it. It really makes a difference. Thank you. And if you need more resources on capacity, energy, and all that stuff, we have a pile at neurodiverging.com. So go check that out. Thank you so much for being here with me. Please remember, we're all in this together. Subscribe, like, leave a comment, do the things, help me share this with other people, share it with a friend. I'll talk to you again soon.